Welcome back. This video will be a start of a series of videos where we will be creating a to-do app. So this to-do app will take a bit more time than normal apps that we've done so far, and while we are doing that to-do app in different parts, we will be looking at how to use SQL in our application. So we're going to make use of this package called SQLite. And the idea behind this video is to just give you the background, and we've got some starter project that I will go through that will basically provide the user interface for you. So we will just be going through the user interface and making sure that you understand every part of it. And then also looking at the packages that we will be using. So the first package that we will be using is called SQLite. And if you go to pub.dev and you go and search for SQLite, you will get to this package. And you can see it is a Flutter favorite, and this plugin supports Flutter for iOS, Android, and macOS. Okay, so web is not supported, and Windows and Dart is supported using this package. Okay, so the dependencies, we will need to have SQLite, but that I've already included inside of the starter project. So we'll get to the starter project now. Another package that we will also be using that's new is Flutter Slidable, and this is just something you can see it's also a Flutter favorite, but it's just helping us to do a nice to-do application where we have a card, and then when we swipe the card, it gives some other options that we can use in order to dismiss it or to delete or whatever we want to do. So this is a package that we'll be making use of, Flutter Slidable, and you can see they give you a lot of explanation there on what to do and how to use it. So make sure you also go through this if you want a bit more information. Also on SQLite, you can see also they give you a lot of coding on how to do transactions, for example, how to do some raw data queries, which I will not go into, and how to set up some SQL helpers. And they show you how to get a list of maps from the database, how to do transactions. There's batch again. Table and column names they show you. Then there's also supported SQL types, and you can see that very important here, Boolean is not supported, so we must make use of integer value 0 or 1, and date time is also not supported, and they recommend us using either milliseconds and epoch or using the ISO stream. So then it also gives you some current issues and maybe some future work that will be done. Okay, so this is the package that we will be using, SQLite and also Flutter Slidable. Right, so we're going to close these two and let's go to the starter project. So to get the starter project, you'll go to bit.ly with a / SQLite provider starter. So just note the spelling, uppercase, lowercase must be exactly the same. Please download this folder, and if you downloaded the folder, we can open it up in Visual Studio Code. Right, so if you downloaded the folder, in your downloads folder, you can just right-click and extract, and you can see it's a very small folder. It's 334 kilobytes, but it's got enough info here to keep us busy for this video. Okay, so in the lib folder, you can see that we've got some folders created there, just some structure on how to structure out this very simple app. But very simple, must also be maintainable, and for that, we need to separate different parts of the application. Okay, so you can go and open it up by just going to creating a new window in Visual Studio Code, open up the folder. Mine is under downloads, double click it, go into it until you see the lib folder, and then just go one back. And that's the one we want to open up. Right, when it asks you to get the packages there, just make sure that you get the packages. And that's basically getting all the packages ready for you in the pubspec.yaml. So let's go to the pubspec.yaml first, and you can see that we've got 3 packages that we will be using here, apart from the Cupertino icons that normally comes default with this. We've got SQLite, we've got provider, and we've got this Flutter Slidable. So it's those 3 packages that we will be using only inside of this application. Right, so I've just started going to main.dart, and I've started running this application, and is running on the phone currently. So just to get back, your pubspec.yaml, only those 3 lines. Okay, so now let me close down the pubspec.yaml, and let's see what we have. So in our lib folder, you can see I do not have any assets folder. We're not going to use any pictures in here, just the normal lib folder. So inside of the lib folder, you'll see a database folder, a models folder, pages, routes, services, and some widgets. And then we've got the main dot dot. Okay, so our to-do database, we will not handle in this video. We will do that in the next one. And also some models that we have here is for 2 tables that we're going to use in our application. And I think before we look at those, let's just quickly run through what we've got in the app so far. Right, so if you look at the app, we'll be able to register a new user for the app. And then after registering for the user, we will go and see some sort of to-do list. So this is the to-do list that we will be creating. We will have cards that looks like this underneath each other. And when you're done with something, you will click there. It won't work now currently because we still need to set it up. But if you click on it, it should have a strike through there. It will show the date when this specific entry was made. And then also you can slide it, and that's where the slidable package comes in. We can slide it and then also delete it or do what we want to do. This button at the top also opens up a new to-do so that we can start typing maybe and saying we want some milk also there. Click on save, which will not work now. This is just simple UI elements. Okay, so basically we will be using 2 models, 2 tables in our database. One to store the user so that we can have new users for this app. So you can see here, we can register a new user by entering a username so that more than one person on the phone can actually use the to-do list for his own to-dos. And for that user then also we will save to-dos. And that is then linked to a specific user. So if you go back and you enter the username for a specific user, only his to-do items should be listed. And this is the to-do items. And that will be saved against the username from the user table. So we will have a foreign key there. Okay, so basically 2 tables, and it will be the user table and the to-do table. And that's all for this app. And this is all the screens. But it's quite a lot to go through to make sure that you understand the user interface. So let's quickly start with this. Okay, so we've got a user table. A user table will only have a username and a name. And the user fields at the top, you will see for both classes, I've got user fields at the top. So this will just refer to the fields as we're going to use them in the SQL database. So for the SQL database, we will have for the user table a field called username and a field called name. And then later on, when we want to do queries and we want to get all the data back, then we're going to refer to all the fields as a list of the fields, which is the username and the name. Okay, so for now, just the basics. We will get into this in the next video. So in the to-do class also, we've got a username, a title. We've got done and created. So if we quickly go to this, you will see that the username will be linked to a specific person's list of to-dos. Title is then that bread there. The done will basically say, are we done with it? Did we buy it or not? And so it's just a Boolean value there. And then the date time when it was created will be at the bottom. Okay, so we've got a username, a title, done, and created. So in our to-do table in SQL, we will have these as the column names. Username, title, done, and created. And then there's a list of all of them so that we can use it later on with queries. Okay, so if you go to this file, it's empty. It will stay empty for now. So let's go to the pages quickly. Okay, so those 2 folders will, in the next videos, we will have a look at those to build them to make sure that we build our app correctly. Okay, so let's go and look at the UI. So under pages, you'll see login, register, and to-do page. And it's just these 3. This is the login page, there's the register user page, and then the to-do page. Okay, so let's start with the login page and see what we've got on that page. So on this page, you can see we've got a text widget there. We've got a text field. We've got 2 buttons. Now for this text field, we will need to have a text editing controller. I'm declaring it late because if you remove late here, you can see it doesn't like it because of null safety. It cannot contain a null value. So I'm basically just indicating it's going to be late. And this is where I initialize it late. So it's going to be in the init state and in dispose. So in init state, remember that this is a stateful widget, which gives me access to the state class, which gives me access to these 2 functions that we can use. So init state help me to initialize some stuff just before our build function runs, and also dispose will dispose of anything that we need to dispose of before this screen actually closes. Okay, so there we declare the username controller. So that's the controller we need for the text field. So there we declare it. Here we initialize it. And then here we dispose of it. So make sure that you've got those 3 steps for your text field. Okay, and then if we go down into the build, you can see that we've got a scaffold with a container. So this container has got a decoration, which is a box decoration that's got a gradient. The gradient starts at the top center to the bottom center, and it starts with purple to blue. So you can see we've got purple at the top, and it's going a gradient from the top to the bottom, from purple to blue. Okay. Now, after that, for the container, we've got a center widget. I've got a single child scroll view there. So normally when you're working with text fields, it could be that your keyboard presses your UI elements too far off the screen, and then you are able to actually scroll using a single child scroll view. So easy to add that on your column. Just use Control Dot and you can wrap it with a widget. Right, then in the side of this column, you can see the column is centered also in the main axis and also a center at the top, and that's why everything is nicely in the center of the screen. Okay, and then you can see inside of the column, we've got some padding around this text widget. So this text widget is the welcome that you see there with some padding around it. And then we've got the app text field. So this app text field, you will see I placed in its own class there, or in its own Dart file there under widgets, and it's called app text field dot. But if you want to go to it, you can just hover over it, use down control and click with your mouse. It will also take you to the file. And you can see there's the app text field. So for this app text field, we accept a controller, and that's the controller we set up there in the login page. We also send through the label text, and the label text is this: please enter your username. So you can see that we're reusing this here and there. So there we passed in please enter your username, there we passed in please enter your name. So we are reusing this, and that is why I've placed it in its own file so that we can reuse it easily. Okay, so we take in those 2 pieces of data. There it is, controller and label text. So for the controller, we pass it in as the controller for this text field, and the label text we pass in as the label text for this text field. Or not for the text field, but for the input decoration. So the input decoration has got a label text, and that is why if you click there, you can see it floats upwards. Okay, so this text field has got some padding around them, top and bottom, left and right. So I could have used the symmetric maybe, instead of setting every single value. Okay, so there's the text field. The text field's got a text style, so it's white. The cursor color is white. The controller is the one that was sent through. The keyboard type, in all 3 of these, it's just a normal text keyboard. So for that, I did not need to pass in the keyboard type. But if your keyboard type will be different, then you can maybe also pass it through. For this example, all will be the same. We've got an input decoration for the label style. So the label will be white. The focused border is this outline border, which will have a width of 2 and a color of white. So it's currently focused. You can see it's a dark white. But if I click away, you can see the focus is gone. And then it goes to the enabled border with a width of 1 and a color of gray. So now you can see it's a gray outline, and as soon as I focus it, it becomes white and double the thickness. You can see the width is 2 and the width there is 1. Okay, so this is just a simple app text field, and wherever I want to use it, I just pass in the controller and the text I want, and it looks exactly the same everywhere. Okay, so that's the app text field. We're passing in the username controller. We're passing in please enter your username, and that's why we see this text field. Right, underneath that, you can see we've got this elevated button. So there's the elevated button, but it's got some padding around it. So the elevated button has got an on pressed. That just goes to the to-do page at this stage, but we will add some coding there later. The style is just purple color, and the text is continue on it. Then we go to the text button, again, just taking us to the register page, showing the text register a new button, or register a new user. Okay, and that is it for the login page. So nothing really weird inside of the login page. Let's go to the register page. So if we go to the register page, it looks like this. So you can see that probably we're using a stack or something here to do this. We've got the text, there's 2 text fields, there's another error text, and we've got a button. Okay, so 2 text fields. You can see that I have 2 text editing controllers there. There I initialize them, there I dispose of them. Okay, let's go into the scaffold. In the scaffold, I've got a stack, and the stack has this container that is a center column. So it's this part is the center and the column. Okay, and then right at the bottom, I've got one positioned, and that is this arrow there at the top. So you can see it's the arrow back, and it just pops the context, and that's why I can go back. Okay, right, so let's go up. So as part of this stack, the container is this column here, basically the whole screen is this container, because you can see again it's the box decoration. It's got a linear gradient with a top center and bottom center gradient going from purple to blue. So purple at the top, blue at the bottom. Right, then we've got a center widget again as part of this container. So the child for the container is the center. Again, just a single child scroll view to make sure that this doesn't push up the user interface too far, so that we can still move if it's not, or if it's too far. Right, so in the column then, you can see that we've got it in the center, and the alignment is also centered. There's some padding around this text widget called register user, so nice big text there. Then we've got this app text field, which is the first one. So you can see we've got both. We've got the app text field, then this text that's red there, and then another app text field. So there's a slight difference between these two. You can see this one has got a focus around it, and this one is just a normal app text field. Okay, so the one with the focus around it, we want to do something specific here. We want to check whether when we move away from this text field, then we want to either show this red text there or not. So what's going to happen here is we're going to start typing your username, let's say C. Norris, and when we move away from it, and C. Norris already exists in the database, we want to already tell the user here. So you can see we are losing focus or gaining focus. So that's what this focus widget will help us with. So when the focus change, we will do something for this app text field. Okay, so we will get back to that later on. And then this text will also change depending on what happens on that focus. We will either show it or not show it. Right, then we've got an app text field, which is this one. Please enter your name. We're passing in the name controller. Then we also got this elevated button that's got some padding around it with its on pressed, and it's just showing register. Right, and that's basically it for this register class. Now, I've just added something at the bottom, and we have a quick look at this also somewhere during all of these parts that we're going through for this app, and that's an app progress indicator. So SQL happens really fast on the phone, so we won't actually see this, but we will simulate something. For example, if you do a lot of transactions, maybe in batch or whatever, and it could take maybe a second or two longer than you used to, then you can add something like this app progress indicator. So I've just added this at the bottom, and it's quite nice. You'll see when we start running it how it works. But what this app progress indicator do, it's just a stateless widget. It's a container. I'm using the media query to get the height and the width of this container exactly the same size as the screen. So remember that media query of context size.width and height give me the exact height and the width of the screen. So we're making this container fit the whole screen, and then we will have a white color, but with opacity of 50%, which means it's going to be see-through. So I'm going to have this as part of the stack. So you see that we've got a position. So right at the bottom, I will add this app progress indicator on top of the stack so that we can see everything that's still underneath this. So we will still see all of this because it's 50% see-through there. It's opacity of 50%. And we can then see still the register user, but it will seem a bit foggy or something. Okay. Now, in the center of this container is another container with a height and a width of 20 that will contain the circular progress indicator, and it will be purple. So we will have a white page on top of this with a circular indicator, but you can see through it. So it will just seem a little bit foggy over it. Okay, that's then all for this register page. Now let's go to continue, and this is when we go then to the to-do page. So let's look at the to-do page quickly. For the to-do page, you can see that, well, you don't see any text fields here, but we've got a text editing controller. So that comes from this little plus that you click. It pops up this dialog, and there's the text field that we want to use. Okay, so for this text field here, we have the text editing controller, we initialize it there, and we dispose of it there. Okay, so now let's go through the layout for this one. So you can see right at the start, we've got a row at the top with these two icon buttons. So again, we've got a container with a box decoration with a linear gradient, top center, bottom center, and there's the colors again. So probably we could have had this linear gradient in its own file somewhere, and we can just be referring to it instead of using it the whole time. Okay, so in this case then, again, purple to blue, 100%. Now you will see then I have a column, and that's the column that will contain basically this one at the top, the text widget, and then the list of to-dos. So for this column, you can see I wrapped it with a safe area. So what will the safe area do? It will just make sure that these two icons do not go underneath this notification bar there. And also if you have an app bar at the top, it will make sure it goes just underneath that. So you can have a look at the safe area also. So just to make sure that we can clearly see all the elements on the screen. Okay, so there's the column. For the column, we've got a row, and that's the first row you see at the top with the two icons. You can see the main axis alignment is on the end, so it's on the right-hand side. We've got an icon button with the add picture. That's white and size 30. And in it's on pressed, so it's this one. If I click it, it opens up a new dialog. So there you can see the dialog. It's not dismissible, so I cannot click on the sides. The context is there, the builder is there. We're returning an alert dialog with rounded corners of size 20. So you can see there, nicely rounded. The title, create a new to-do. The text field there has got an input decoration, please enter to do. So you can see I'm not using the same text field as what we have there. And then we've got some actions, and it's just the cancel and the save button. So cancel will pop it off the context, and save will actually be saving one of these to do. So we will get to that later on. Okay, so that's just your icon button, the add one that opens up this dialog. Then we've got a second one that shows exit to app, so it's this one. And it's also white and 30, and it will just pop off the context so that we can go back to the login screen. Okay. Now the next part inside of that column, after the row, you will see it's this text widget that will show John's to-do list. So obviously if you enter your username there and you registered with your name there, then when you click on continue, it will show you whatever your name is, will show that guy's to-do list. Okay, so we'll get to that later. Then we've got an expanded widget, and basically the widget that we are having here is this list view.builder. And that's the list of all these items, all of the to-do items. So I've just wrapped it with some padding, and then I wrapped it with expanded. So what is expanded doing? It's just telling this list view that you have the rest of the screen to lay out the elements. So nothing else will be there except for you. So then it can make it as big as possible. Okay, so for this list view.builder, we are just building one card there. It's an item builder that will have an index. So later on, we will get a whole list of to-dos, and we will use the length of the list there, and going through the index values, we will run through every to-do. Right, for now, we just have one to-do card. So we'll look at to-do card now, which we're passing in a to-do object. So the to-do object is this model there. So it's basically an object of this class that we're passing through, and the username, I just set it to something there so we can see something showing, but this will come from the SQL database. Okay, so we're passing in a to-do object. You will see the username will be linked to this list, so we will see which user's list this is. We will have a title that the user will see, bread. The created, the user will see there, and that the user will see the done, yes or no, and that's basically it then for this to-do card. So for the to-do card, you can see we're passing in a to-do object. So there's the to-do card. We're passing in only the to-do object, and that will take care of the rest. So if we click on that, you can see where I've used it. In the subtitle, it's this part there. We are taking that to-do object, going to created.day, .month, and .year, and then we see those. And then for the text widget, there's a to-do.title. So it is the bread there that we're seeing. You will also see the value will be to-do.done. And by default, if you go to your to-do, you will see that we set that defaultly to false, so that when you actually create it, it's not marked off already. So default, it will be false, so it will be open like this one. And that is basically then the places where we use this value for to-do. Okay, so let's just go through this to-do card. You'll see right at the start, I start with a card. I've got a color set. And there's the slidable package now. So this slidable class comes from this slidable package that we included, Flutter slidable. And if you have a look at it, actually very easy to use. You're going to use the action pane. So it's either slidable drawer action pane or whatever. You can go and have a look on pub.dev on the different action panes you can use there. So just go through those and make sure that you can go and play around with them. So then we've got also primary actions and secondary actions. So your secondary actions is coming in when you slide from the left or from the right to the left, like we're having now with this delete. Then you have your secondary actions. And you can also have primary actions by sliding from the left to the right, but I haven't included those because we don't need them. Okay, so there's primary and secondary actions, and for the actions you're using an icon slide action. Okay, so in this case, when we slide it, it opens up one that says delete. There you can see delete. Color is purple. The icon is the delete icon, and it's got its own on tap. So later on, when we click this, as soon as we click it, it deletes it from the list. Okay, so that's the secondary actions. It's also got a child, and then the child can be anything. So in our case, I've just chosen to use a checkbox list tile. So it's this one, the checkbox there, and it's got a title and a subtitle. Check color is the dark purple. The active color is purple. So you'll see as soon as we click there, it will become this light purple with a dark purple check mark. It's got the value. Currently it is false. Unchanged. When it changes, we will use provider to help us out to do the state management there. We've got a subtitle that shows the date there, and we've got a title that shows the to-do title. Right, and that is basically it for this video. So we just needed to go through this starter application just to make sure that everybody is on the correct page. So let's just go through. We've done database models and pages. So let's just go through the roots quickly before we end off this video. So if we go to our roots file, you can see that we've got a root manager, and I've done this 3 or 4 times now, where we've got a login page and a register page and a to-do page. We use this generate root that's got its own root settings, and we are opening up login, register, and to-do page. So this is in its own file called roots.dart, and we're using it in the main.dart to say the initial root should be root manager.login page, and the onGenerate root should be root manager.generate root. Okay, so that's the root. Very easy. We've done that in previous videos. Go and have a look at my videos again if you're still not sure about roots. Then you'll see that we've got 2 services classes, and these 2 classes will just basically be the 2 files or the 2 classes that the provider package will provide for me. So we will do our database there. These are basically the tables for the database, and then using a combination of the database file and the 2 model files there, we will create the to-do and the user service that will help us to do transactions in the database. Right, and then we've got the 2 widgets. We've got an app text field, and you'll also see that I've got a dialogues file there that will just show the snack bar for me. So they're everywhere in this app. When we want to show the user something like successfully saved or successfully deleted, or no, there's an error, or the user exists, or whatever, we will be making use of this show snack bar. So this show snack bar takes in a context, and it takes in a message. So the snack bar at the top, the duration is 1.2 seconds, so it's 1,200 milliseconds. It's got an elevation of 10. It's got a rounded rectangular border. Top left and top right will just be a small 5 there. It's got a background color of purple, and it will show that message that was passed in. And then we start showing it. So the only thing we need to do in the app is just to go and call show snack bar, pass in the context, and pass in the message as a string. And then we've got the same message that looks exactly the same everywhere throughout the app. Right, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one.